All right, wanted to talk through some more updates and changes here to Jira. Um, yeah, the diagnostic maintenance workflow is a good one. I noticed this is for Rachel and Wendy again, but also just really for the whole team. But yeah, it looked like what was put in here, I think will work pretty well when we have kind of some follow-up items, especially if there's a discrete step like where there's this many items. I think one of the things to kind of suggest is if Jira lets us, um, when there's a diagnostic item, I think it's going to make sense to put it in as a diagnostic maintenance item. So we might have a mixture of scope items and diagnostic maintenance items. Although I'm not certain. I think I need to tinker with it. Whether or not the diagnostic maintenance item can be added at these different levels with the way this is configured. So, in other words, can we put it right underneath as a separate item under an address level, outside of the address level, and then underneath this next level down underneath a workflow level. Anyways, this looks good. That would be the one suggestion I would have is just if there's diagnostic specific stuff to put it in as a diagnostic item. That way we can kind of split up the responsibility in that way. Um, and then if it, if there's several items that just make sense to go in under a turn, there was enough here that I think this is good to have this as a separate item. Anyways, the next thing to make everyone aware of, and I think this is probably for you, Rachel, um, or whoever, but so these forms here, if you go up to the form, I made this like diagnostic maintenance item, and we can share this now with tenants. So my preference would be that we kind of start putting this on the tenants so that right when something comes in, they have a link. And I just had a video of a washer item at East Douglas come in, and the preference here would be that they're aware of a link, and it just goes right into Jira. And if they consider it an emergency, that they would mark it as such. That way, like any of the pictures, any of the videos, the information can come in as a first stage from the tenant. It's going to default into the workflow under the business diagnostic, which I think is appropriate because that's the first level of kind of triage. Um, and then there will be the usual decisions as to what happens from there. So this is could be shared through an email or a link. I think that would be great if we started having our items come in that way. From tenants. Um, I guess Wendy could use this as well, or for guest issues, or for you folks that are more familiar with Jira and have access, just put it directly in there. Okay, so that's the first thing. Let me check on time. We got 3 minutes in. I think we're doing good. The other thing to kind of make some awareness of. So this is like the first step, but I think it's good to talk through, the communication. Um, like I think Rachel, you'd reached out about the responsiveness on the 3118 E7th. And, I don't want to speak for Seth. I think it's going to be best if we just talk about the communication. But like I met with Seth yesterday and we tried to get on the same page, to continue like the conversation around what we can commit to, um, given that, the workflow is changing. Like we're sort of, it's evolving with the team dynamics. So here's what we came up with. So firstly, let me actually jump over to the other one. Um, and this top one, this little note, work delivery and results, ownership, clarification. So that's a big one. What we're talking about there is, I think it's good for that to be like, let's be a team, but for things to be as explicit as we can in terms of who's actually owning, getting whatever it is to the finish line and resolving it. So I think there's going to be situations where, we could be happy to do it, but there's going to be situations where it's going to make sense to keep that under, say Wendy or Jeremy, like something comes up, say in an Airbnb context, they're there, they can take care of it. So if you have the compensation there that can handle that, great. But we also want to kind of make it where there's the ability to escalate it, but we're being as explicit as we can about who's actually owning and getting assigned like the work once we call it RFW, once it's ready for work. And you don't have to use the same terminology, but like if we're working as a team and we want to be ready to support or take ownership, like it does need to kind of come in a way that is digestible, that we understand. So, anyways, like so you notice below here, there's the emergency on the left, and then the non-emergency on the right. The idea is like the emergency always, like Jira is great, like just put it into Jira, but know that there's certain situations that I was talking to Seth, and he's even like, "Yeah, I want to try to be responsive within like 15 minutes. We got like a leaking pipe or something like that, like a true like drop everything kind of thing." Um, but yeah, like emergency, it's like still get it into Jira. That's important to have it in there so that we can, the follow through and the communication on it is there, but the phone and text is still available. On non-emergency items on the right there, it's the same progression from email, and phone and text is still available, but usually non-emergency, like the Jira is the first step, then maybe the email, then phone text, but really there shouldn't be a lot of non-emergency items where it's appropriate to like pick up the phone or text somebody. um Seth even gave Asher's young man that it's just like if we're having trouble getting in touch with him, that's Asher's phone number. Okay, let me check on time. We're doing okay. um So this other one, it gets into like the use cases of like what, we can kind of commit to. I think, Seth is going to need, like we all do sometimes, accountability or sort of, but we got to kind of like commit to a process. So if you notice here, the top one is 1A and the bottom one is 1B. And notice like those are split between, um, and then the middle two and three are basically the difference between those is where the ownership has transferred. Like if you guys decide to put this under our side of the fence, and like we have responsibility for the diagnostic effort, um you want to actually adjust the status and put it in that diagnostic effort. The top is a situation where like we're not taking ownership of everything necessarily. We're still a team. We can, weigh in, we can provide, you know, but that's the situation where like we get tagged. I say we, like me, Seth, like where we get tagged, we want to be responsive within 6 hours. But that situation is not like where, the status is updated to our diagnostic specific responsibility, or, we're taking ownership of pushing it all the way through to resolution. It's more just, hey, you need some input. Cool. The bottom one is similar, where, if you need some support for moving it through the RFW stage, but we still want to be explicit on who's handling the work, like, we just wanna be careful that we can offer help, but that we're not necessarily always, like, the ones that are gonna be taking it all the way to the finish line, because it's not gonna make sense for that to be the case. The middle 2 are situations where it is more, we're talking about our end result being, the deliverable being getting the scope defined to where it's an RFW stage, and we have the top emergencies, like we want to be responsive within 6 hours, and non-emergencies within 48 hours. So, I think that's going to be a thing, but I think we all should not be shy about calling out, if we're not meeting these, as long as it's coming in the format that we're wanting, that we're keeping each other accountable. I think that's it for this. I think. Let me go back to here real quick. Not getting anything, but yeah, everything's going good. I think like tinkering more with this diagnostic maintenance item. When we know that there's work to do on the front end or diagnostic work, I just suggest that we start using that. Um, and I think that's all I got.